remember that me and Nathan were going for a walk in San Diego, and Nathan was crying, and he's like, "But this is my first girlfriend. I don't know how to choose if she's the right one or not." And I'm like, "Bro, you just gotta be wary, man. That girl be sharing her opinion every 2 seconds. She gonna do that when you guys marry, and
so now what do you do when she shares her opinion?
Kick her under the table." Everybody, welcome to Beyond the Letter.
Right.
Today is a special day because Caleb has the week off. And
today's a special day because Caleb has the week off.
Well, no, not because Caleb has the week off, but it's a special day. And since Caleb has the week off, he's not in. We're like, oh, who do we have come fill in? We thought, what a perfect day, because we've had Nathan, my oldest brother, in individually before. We have Sanaz on pretty frequently. And then it was like, okay, well, perfect opportunity. Let's have Nathan and Sanaz together.
Hey.
And they had to throw Ashlee in there.
Hey.
Violated.
So everybody, today is a special podcast.
Yay.
It is a special day because we got Nathan and Sanaz together in a podcast, which took a lot from Nathan because he was mad. Because we filmed this from 11 to 1, every week. And so Nathan was like, I usually go to lunch at 12. And he's very upset. Very skinny man.
He has his little beef
skinny
jerky.
man gets upset very fast. So
if I have to have a little snack.
he roid rages very fast. So
oh my gosh.
We have to make sure that he is on his P's and Q's with his snacks. So he has his snacks. He's got beef jerky on his table, along with a Kirkland water as well. And Sanaz has some tan coffee drink on the table.
It's actually 3 shots of espresso, and then I put a Fairlife protein shake
Look
in
at
it,
you.
so.
We don't care, Sanaz. And so we have in here as well Nancy in the house, Jermaine in the house, Gabe in the house with his Beyond the Letter hat looking good.
Nice.
And then who's that? Andy in the back? Is Andy back there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Andy, you didn't start school?
No.
When do you start? You're
You're
homeschooling?
homeschooling.
Yes.
Is this
Bro,
first year?
since this year?
Since like 3rd grade.
Since 3rd grade.
It's an insider with him. I always make fun of him for being homeschooled.
That's cool. Well, he
That's
started sitting in the
cool.
studio during summer, so I just figured it was like a summer vibe.
Oh.
Andy's 16 doing our... Are you 16 still, Andy, or are you 17 yet?
I'm 17.
You
About
turned
to turn
17?
18 in a few months.
You're about to turn 18. Oh, you're about to turn 18, man.
Yeah.
Do you have your driver's license?
Does our videos,
No, I
man.
don't.
What?
But
Well, I don't
Where's this
understand.
generation?
I don't get it.
I
Well,
don't
I saw a
either.
TikTok video.
What is it?
Why don't they want to
Is it-
drive?
is it Uber?
They said it's overall underdevelopment for Gen Z in social things, particularly a job, license, anything, adulthood. Like they have delayed adulthood on purpose.
Oh.
It's their
Gotcha.
desire. Like delayed adulthood, it's their choice. So they're dating later in life. This was it was a psychologist was watching a video. They date longer in life now. They wait longer to date. They wait longer to get their driver's license, and then they wait longer to get their first job. So
Interesting.
we're our generation, we're millennials, and then going to Gen Xers and above. It's like 14, 16 start job, 16 license. Them, it's like 18, 19, 20 license, first job 25, dating somewhere in the middle of that where,
I'm not driving my kids around at 17.
No. Matthias is going at 16. No. Absolutely.
On his birthday.
On
I
his
don't think
birthday.
so.
Yes,
Yeah.
Good for you, Andy.
Yeah.
Yes, what are you going to
Great job, Andy.
Good for you, man.
I don't think so.
And you're making all our videos, bro. So
Yeah, absolutely.
you got a good head on your shoulders
And
by
I hear
my
a lot
regard.
of people, too, say they don't get their driver's license until they're 18 because it's free at that point. Right?
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to
You
do
don't have to
the...
test,
do a
yeah.
test,
I have to
just
take
go.
driver's ed because I'm a minor, and that's like really expensive. So it's
Right,
like
right.
I'm about to
Oh.
turn 18, so why not just wait
Wait.
and then
Got
I can
it.
just get it then.
Right. That makes sense.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
My,
I
kid,
mean-
my
Alright.
kid's getting a car at
So
16
hey,
and go and drive.
we got a
Leave me
pretty
alone.
big spread today. Okay, so we have
gosh.
Andy 17.
Oh, don't do
Right.
this. Don't do this.
and then we have Sanaz, who's our resident baby boomer.
The eldest in the room.
Yeah, great spread.
She's an elder. Deacon and
No, is
elder.
Corey gone? If Corey's gone,
Yeah.
then she's the oldest.
Yeah.
Do you know
Is
how
Corey
many
still in
text
here?
messages I got after that podcast? That was just like, you're a boomer? And
Hey, you got to let everybody know. Let them know.
I say the young adults laughed a little too hard at that.
I try not to laugh, but I did.
No, it was
I
great.
did
It was great.
chuckle.
It was great.
It's a good one.
A little chuckle.
Good one. People got to know our dynamic, you know?
A dynamic.
I mean, because,
Not a boomer.
He's always made.
But she does super low blows on me being young, and so I got to do super low blows on her eldership.
I feel like you
know?
need to share. I feel like you need to share about what our relationship was like when we first met.
Yes,
because that
very
was
toxic.
It,
Very toxic.
Explain.
I didn't really like Sanaz when I first met her because, as many people know, Sanaz, she's been on the podcast before, but Sanaz is not only very chipper. Sanaz is what quintessentially women do, which women they hear a story and they're like, they immediately give their take, their opinion on things, their side of things. And when I met Sanaz, I was 22, which would have made Sanaz 32. So she's even older already in that regard. And so, you know, my first time meeting her, she's like, I'm talking about a girlfriend I had at the time or loosely had. And then Sanaz like, I'll tell you what I think you should do. And I'm like, well, I think my problem is this. And I'm just talking out loud with the guys. She's the only other girl on the table. And she's like, no, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's your problem. And I'm like, who is this person?
He hated me. Hated me.
So I don't even know what I said back then, but it would have been something in regards like I'm not talking to you or something like that, you know. And then Sanaz is just like, man, this young little arrogant, jerk. Yeah. Like he thinks he knows it all, and so all the guys are just like listening, like that's what guys do. They don't really offer advice; they just listen, and like we were joking about before, they just grudge, like, oh yeah, or oh man, dude, sucks. Hope the best for you. Sanaz over here trying to use her counselor degree and break like, man, I'm going to help this guy and maybe he'll like me. And I'm like, no.
Because and then what ended up happening was you had a very strong opinion about Nathan and I being together because you thought that I was just going to absolutely bulldoze
Correct.
the relationship.
Correct. And Nathan's such a nice boy.
He's such a nice guy. And so he was like, I don't think you should be with that girl. And he's like, but I love her. And it was just this, sweet little thing.
Well, yeah, I specifically remember that. Me and Nathan were going for a walk in San Diego, and Nathan was crying. And he's like, but this is my first girlfriend. I don't know how to choose if she's the right one or not. And I'm like, bro, you just got to be wary, man. That girl be sharing her opinion every 2 seconds. She's going to do that when you guys marry. And
so now what do you do when she shares her opinion?
Kick her under the table. I couldn't do it then at the lunch.
Yes. Now, what I didn't know at the time, though, was there was a little lion inside of Nathan that it just I didn't know was there at that time. So nobody's gonna walk all over Nathan, but Nathan's so quiet and like much more docile that you think, oh, he'd be easy to take advantage of, or he'd be easy to steamroll, and he's not. He's the farthest thing from being able to do that. He's just more mild tempered than most people. But that I didn't know at the time. So then,
and at the time, because you were 22, and that was like a season where you were just not very pro women. Yeah. And I was,
mind you, because my fiance left me for was going to be soon fiance left me for a guy that was in her college class and didn't tell me. So I was not a fan of women.
So since you shared that, the very, very, very first moment I met Adam was at church, and then the three of us went to lunch afterwards, and she was at the restaurant, and so he completely shut down.
I remember
and I was like, and that was like the first time you had seen her. So he shut down, and I was like, I'm a compassionate person. So I was like, I don't like that this girl like just completely changed his whole demeanor that day. So then fast forward a month or so, and he's talking about maybe opening up the door to this woman again. I quickly went back to that day, and being Persian, I only know how to speak in a very direct. It's a very cultural thing. It's toned down a little.
I know
bit,
it now, but
Yeah,
because
you know
I got
it
good
now.
friends like Deanna and Jimmy
Right.
and
But at the time,
I knew
it was
Cairo. I've
like
talked about Cairo on here before. Yeah.
I was just like, I don't think that that's a good idea. And
Yeah.
I just was very upfront because I don't know how else to speak.
Right.
And he was like, who the heck is this chick telling me what? I just
Right.
kept going back to me seeing him completely shut down the very first time I met him. And he was very happy before and then very different after. So, like, in my mind, I was like, whether I know this guy or not, I just want to protect him. I had heard so many amazing things about you from Nathan that I felt like I knew you. So
Right.
I just went into like protective sister moment, and
Yeah.
you were like, "You're doing a little too much, old
is
lady."
this girl?
So,
Chill.
but now we
Now I
have
know
a fantastic
Yeah.
relationship.
So now.
Here we
Now
are.
she goes for low blows.
Here
I
we
go
are.
for low
Yeah,
blows.
yeah, yeah.
Here
Right.
we
It's
are.
fun.
Yeah, because it's all
good time.
started.
It's a good
It all
time.
started. How long you guys been together now? Because you got married within
We've
like
been
90
all-
days, 90
yeah.
day fiance. So
we were
We've
the
been together
original
over 11 years.
TLC.
yeah,
Over 11 years. 11 and a
together
half?
11 and a half.
Yeah.
11 and a half. Oh, you count the halves. That's cute.
You guys
Over
have been-
11.
So you've been married 10 and been together 11. Oh,
Right.
yeah. So we're not too far.
Yeah.
What's up, bro?
What's up, bro?
Yeah. By the way, Ashlee's in here. She hasn't said anything yet.
Hi, Ashley.
Right. My wife's in here
I
as
just
well.
love admiring
Yeah.
my family.
Can anyone notice Ashlee got embarrassed this morning because she has a typo on her T-shirt? that she bought?
I sat in this area
It
so
said-
it wouldn't say it.
She's like, I'm not gonna wear it because there's a typo. It's supposed to say his
It is.
mercies,
Oh, it's
but
its
it looks like it's
mercies.
mercies.
It's mercies are.
But
Like
I told her right
like
before
a-
we walked in, I saw that exact shirt online and I was going to buy it yesterday.
No, not just
just know it's got a
online,
typo.
on Temu.
On
So
Temu.
that's what I said that's probably.
Is that where you got it from?
not
I asked. I said,
Oh,
"Did you get it
gosh.
from Temu?" Because I saw it on Temu yesterday, and
Just
I was
so
going to
you know,
buy
it's
it
gonna
because I
have
thought
a
it was
typo.
cute. I was like, "That's
A
probably
Christian
why it
shirt
goes."
with a typo of referring to God is a pretty.
That's probably why it's
pretty
on
big
Temu for $4.30 because
But yet he still told me to wear it. If it's such a
no,
big
it's
mistake,
wonderful.
golly, I'm
But
so
had you
innocent.
not brought it up,
No, what I told her was my brain filled
Just
in the
turn to
gap.
the side.
I said it's
well,
not a
she
big
said,
deal.
"Read this," and I said, "His mercies are new every morning."
Yeah, not it's.
It's yeah.
But yeah, that's what I
Well-
told her until she pointed it out. She was like, "Did you see it?" I'm like, "No," but when you told me there's something wrong with it, then yeah, I started looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know,
Well,
hallelujah, looks great.
I'll
I think
throw
it's a
it
cool
away
shirt
after
though.
this.
we are.
It's
Thanks.
very
Yeah,
cool.
here we are.
It's very cool. I have first of all,
Okay, there's two.
I don't know if we're
thoughts behind
split.
that.
Yeah, I have two thoughts.
Yeah.
Number one,
Switch real fast.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time. We should make an announcement of the next podcast coming.
Oh, yeah.
So, here real soon, within the next month or so, we'll be launching a new podcast under the Beyond the Letter umbrella,
Yeah.
which is going to be called, some people already know, we've kind of shared it before. I don't know. It's going to be called Beyond I Do. So, it's a marriage, specifically marriage and relationship podcast. The way we have made, Caleb and I have made Beyond the Letters to be that general conversation where everything is allowed to be on the table. And it's not really meant to be something that answers all your questions. Beyond the Letter is meant to open conversation, bring people into conversation, bring people into community, let people while they're listening to us talk back at us, you know, all that kind of stuff like that. And then what we thought would be appropriate is Ashlee and I had such a huge success with a marriage sprint that we did, which was
Great
a
job.
6-week
Yeah.
course.
Great job at that.
Sanaz and Nathan
Very.
led the intimacy portion, which I heard because we were on vacation. It was money. I've watched it now since. We're going to be launching that as a digital course for people. At the same time, we launched the Beyond I Do podcast. So that's exciting. Me and Ashlee are filming the intros and outros tomorrow.
Yes.
So then that'll be out at the same time. It's going to be the Beyond I Do marriage course. And so we're really excited about that one. You know, people struggle with relationships. So Beyond I Do is going to be a podcast that more so equips people for healthy marriages and
Right.
relationships.
Good.
Beyond the Letter is conversational.
Yeah.
Beyond I Do is going to be in the same format, same studio. We're changing the logo, all that stuff every time we film. It's going to come out weekly. But it's more of me and Ashlee having conversations with couples we really admire in their marriage, ones that have blended family, ones that have experienced divorce, ones that have pastors and their marriages. And so that's what that's going to be, in addition to consistently asking questions. When we did the marriage sprint, we had like over 250
Yeah.
questions come in the course of that sprint that were like so good and so specific that we were like, oh man, there's definitely enough in this.
For sure.
So me and Ashley will be launching Beyond I Do.
Congratulations. I'm excited for that
Very
one.
good.
Woo.
Hey man, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'm trying not to do
On
my-
top of that, speaking of marriage, my book final draft was just completed this week. So,
What a
which is on
celebration
marriage
today.
and relationships.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's going to be a big month coming up. Now the book won't come out till next year, but the draft is done. If I say so myself, it's a pretty darn good book.
Very good.
So I'm going through my final edits right now, and then hopefully next year it'll be out, and that'll be a big deal. So it's me and Ashley's
Are you
heart.
saying the topic? Or are you saying the?
We've said it before. Yeah,
Yeah,
the title of the book is
Title,
Divorce
sorry.
Proof Your Life.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we wanted something really big, really catchy that really gets people's attention.
Yeah.
And 50% of people will either, statistically right now, it's not our hope, but
Right.
it is the statistic, 50% of all marriages and relationships end in divorce. So that being said, most people nowadays are a product of divorce then if you're a child.
Right.
So at least 1 out of 2 people have had parents that have had a divorce. So
Right.
Divorce Proof Your Life helps you do everything you can to make sure you can avoid a future divorce. Or if you've been divorced, find out how you got there so it doesn't happen again.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the book not only has my story built in and me and Ashley's relationship built in, but then some like really good equipping tools to help people, number one, reflect the past and then move forward. And then part of our sprint is in the end of the book, which helps people kind of move forward very healthy. So very excited about it. I'll push it really hard next year because I think it's like going to really, really help people. So
For sure.
that's that on the Beyond I Do stuff. All of that's coming out. This is our friends that watch this podcast and listen to this. We thought it's appropriate. You guys should know first everything that's coming. That is me and Ashley's heart, along with, I know that's with Nathan and Sanaz and how they've affected us, their heart as well. But it's me and Ashley's heart to really help marriages and couples. So Beyond I Do is going to be something me and Ashley.
Special.
So fun.
Do you want to say
I'm
you
so
want
excited.
to say anything on it?
No, I'm just super duper excited because I remember we did want to start a podcast a while ago and I was just really lazy apart on it. And so now,
Yeah, she wanted me
You're
to do
ready.
all the work,
I-
and I was
yeah.
like, it's not going to happen.
yeah, no,
I'm not
so
going to
now
do
I'm
all
ready.
the work.
Yeah, so
You ain't
yeah.
going to use me.
Well, yes,
You
I
ain't
will.
gonna, you ain't gonna abuse me. Use
Yes,
my
I will.
talents.
Yes.
She was like, just tell me when to show up. I'm like, you're not a celebrity. You better put some equity. You better learn how to
No,
edit
we
a video.
We
The
actually
talent.
recorded our first one and then it just kind of,
Flopped.
Yeah, it did. It
Wasn't
wasn't
time.
organic. It wasn't
Wasn't,
organic.
yeah.
We didn't, yeah. Now that we've done Beyond
yeah,
the
because it was
Letter,
called, like, it
we
was
know the
something
vibe.
simple.
It was called
Yeah.
Something Simple. It was
Yeah.
great. It was a great concept. It was going to do well, but it just wasn't,
Well, I
wasn't the right
think
time.
I think
don't know
coming
what to
off
say.
of the marriage sprint
Yeah.
and how much you guys poured into the couples
Yeah.
that came to the marriage sprint, there were 600 people that attended every single week. I mean, I've heard testimony after testimony after testimony of just how, you know, there were marriages that were just like literally at the door of divorce,
Yeah.
or even just preparing single people or the engaged people who, you know, want to start their marriage off right. You guys had, I mean, really, really, really like practical tools,
Yeah.
and so I think that being a basis for conversations that you guys have on the podcast, I mean, it's just gonna be such a win, such a
Yeah.
win.
Yes, thank you. I'm very excited for it. We're very excited to help relationships, marriage. We've also found that's usually our most successful podcast in terms of what people share and listen to. And so being able to stick in that niche weekly and help people on top of Beyond the Letter, it lets us dive deeper, which me and Caleb have always said it's our heart. It allows us to go deeper into more of the discipleship. So we do have a future for those listening. Like we have a future for Beyond I Do, which is marriage relationship. We see a future for Beyond Wealth, which is a finance version to help people lift out of low income or just entrepreneurship. So there are streams we want to go into that go deeper into, and then we'll even we'll look at deeper into biblical concepts as well. In terms, all those things are biblical, the relationship, but actually more of some of the people who want to go deep into me and Caleb's seminary background. We've also considered what that offshoot in the future would look like in terms of more of a in-depth seminary side of conversation, which is less popularized, but that's like what we care about.
Right.
You know, people can notice we light up the most when me and Caleb talk about end times or whatever, other biblical concepts. But yeah, so beyond the letter face with that. So that was the first thing. Here's the second thing.
Oh, that was like. Two
I want your guys' thoughts. Well, that was like 20 things in one, but it was all under Beyond I Do. That's all Beyond I Do. The second thing is,
Oh gosh.
and I want everybody's thoughts on this, okay? So if you're driving your car, you're watching this, I thought it was very interesting. Some of you guys may have seen this viral video go off, and I particularly want to know the lady's opinion on this, okay? So you may have seen her, you may not,
scary.
but on TikTok,
Oh my gosh.
a video went viral, and a pastor was doing traditional vows with the couple, and he asked her, and I'm gonna play the video. She's repeating the vows, you know, that you repeat in marriage, and then the pastor gets to the point, do you promise to obey your husband? And she stopped, and she said, we didn't do this in premarital. And the pastor said, yes, we did go over this in premarital. She said, move on. In the wedding.
I've never seen this.
So she did not repeat obey her
You're
husband.
lying.
Now here's the thing. I'm gonna play it for you. I'm gonna play. It's a real wedding.
It's a joke.
It's a real wedding, and I mean it's got millions of views. But here's the other part. When you go in the comments, every single woman
Oh, for
says
sure.
good, as she should have.
For sure. I know.
Shame on the pastor for not preparing her on what her vows were going to be in, yada, 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 yada. And mind you, in his thing, he says, yeah, I did tell you, you know. And you got to imagine this is a black couple. So, you know, I don't think people, because like there was a lot of, I don't think people understand how, like you said about you being
Yeah.
Persian, people don't understand how culturally, because some people were like, this pastor's so rough. The way he spoke to her, it's like, no, that's black church. Like the way you'll see it right now. But like the people who aren't black were like, why is that pastor so mean about saying he told her that they did go over? And like, no, that was actually really docile response,
Yeah.
you know, in the way he did it. But regardless, I want to play it, but I wanted to preempt it so that everyone knows where I'm going with it. And I want to hear the ladies' responses because everyone in TikTok, all the women, I literally, because there was probably like 20,000 comments or, you know, when these things go viral. And I probably got to like 500 comments and everyone that was a woman was just like, good for her, you know. So she shouldn't say yes and blah, 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 blah to that. So, Gabe, do you have it? Wouldn't that be embarrassing if you did it?
All that. We're like, all right, let's just talk about
I gotta hear this.
Okay. Play
In
it.
sickness
and in health,
and in health.
to love,
To love,
cherish,
cherish.
and to obey.
We didn't talk about that one in counseling.
We did talk about that in counseling. Yes, we did. So you want me to repeat that again? You want to just keep going?
I think we can keep going.
All right.
All right. Ashlee, you wanna
Ladies,
start?
what do you
First
think
of all,
about this video?
I think I've been to enough weddings. I've obviously been married. Not to take away from that moment or anything like that, but vows aren't a joke. And so it being funny or humorous, like you can throw funny things into a wedding, but when it comes to a vow to the person that you plan on spending the rest of your life with, I don't think we as individuals that are committing ourselves to be one, should take that lightly. Like my vows were not taken lightly. Like when you see Adam, or when you see me, you should see Adam. When you see Adam, you should see Ashlee. And so if you're doing the wedding and your vows before Christ should align with what the Bible says. Wives, submit to your husband. That's the same thing as obey. That's the same thing as honor. That's the same thing as commit. So regardless of what the word obey, I think a lot of people take that out of context too. Like they treat it like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to obey you like I'm a dog, and he tells me when to sit and I'm gonna sit. He tells me when. Adam respects the most out of me, and he honors me and cherishes me and loves me like Christ loved the church. And so I have every right to honor him. But I think the obeying part is I think so highly of my husband, I'm going to get his perspective or his thoughts before I do something out of my own actions or my own flesh or own convictions, because I've married a man that I know that has wisdom, has covering, and then wants to protect me in anything I do. or correct me in anything I do. So I think when people say vows, I really think they really need to reflect on what the marriage part is, because we're taking marriage so loosely now. And I won't get into depth of what, quote unquote, what is a traditional wedding, because I know what it is, a man and a woman. But this world has made it different. But for me, my vows were taken very seriously. And I love my husband. And to say that I obey him is to say I honor him, to say I respect him in his thoughts and in his choices and his decision to lead this family. I don't lead nothing. If I were to lead this family, we'd be down in the gutter, because I got Afterpay, Affirm, I got debt, I got all this craziness in my life. I ain't leading nothing. I need the man to lead me. I need him to get me in order. That's what God created him for me. He is my helpmate, and I'm to be his helpmate, not his burden, not his back talk, not his attitude, not the one that brings him down. And so sometimes I think that we are in such this independent mindset as women, and it's like, I'm sorry. I know a lot of women have a desire to get married, and that's what God has created us to do. And at the end of the day, that's what our goal is to find marriage, to find unity with a spouse. And so I don't want to say that I get upset when I hear laughter with vows of like, no, you can go on. Like, go on for what? Because is that what you're going to say when trials come?
Yeah.
Just get over it.
Right.
My way or the highway. Sorry. And so I don't want to say that I'm angered by it, but it really ticks me off. Like, that's not something that I think is funny. But
We don't know them, right? We don't know them, right?
But no, I think it angers me more that there's 500 people in the comments that are co-signing on something on
this
tomfoolery
behavior.
and because at the end of the day, even though we know our family and our parents are married, their trials and their struggles were hard, but I could speak for your mom, I could speak for my mom. They stuck to their vows and they obeyed their husband and they loved their husband.
Yeah.
Why I can say I am on a firm foundation with my husband today, because I had great examples.
Right.
So some of these women may have not had those great examples and think they need to be the most independent women ever. But back to the word.
Sure.
Read your scripture. Yeah. Read what the word says. So
the Bible, I just looked it up while you were talking. It says that the biblical definition of obey is to trust. So when we are, that's right, girl, yes, yes. So when we are choosing not to obey our husbands, what we are saying is that we don't trust them. And if we don't trust our husbands, what is the likelihood of success in our marriage?
Right.
0. And not to be judgmental, but when you talk about all those people who are laughing, the people not taking their vows seriously, all the women that are in the comments saying like, yeah, don't obey. That comes from years of you doing things out of God's order to why you don't trust men. And if you don't trust men, you won't obey men.
Yeah.
And if you won't obey your husband, then you are out of God's order. So it's just as simple as it is not okay to say that I'm, because the problem is that in a worldly view, the word obey means like a woman who's going to get on her knees and say, yes, sir, no, sir, whatever you like, sir. Do you need me to cook? Do you need me to clean? I'm barefoot in the kitchen.
Yep.
And you know, I'm a sex kitten in the bedroom.
Yep.
And I'm everything you need. Like, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about biblical order. We're talking about trusting the head of the house to make sure that you are okay. You were talking about that he built your house on a firm foundation. And so, yeah, you're going to obey. If a man is doing his job as a man, it should be easy.
Right.
Easy for us to trust and
Desire
obey and submit and all of those things. And so that's not the case for them, or she thinks that's funny and he's just laughing it off because he thinks it's a joke. And
Well, the husband?
the husband,
No, he just don't know what to say. He knows
doesn't
what he
know what
married.
to
He
say.
knows what he knows what he's walking into.
Yeah.
You know, like
you know, it's one thing, like you say, when people do the for richer or richer,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
people
yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
and that it's fun in games or whatnot. But yeah,
Yeah,
They-
'cause, like,
I'm not putting my money on that couple.
well, yeah, like it just take the vow out and say like, oh, and in sickness, What if she
No,
was
no, no,
like,
in hell.
we didn't talk about that.
Yeah.
What, he gets sick, I'm kicking him to curb. What?
Yeah.
Let's take that
Where are
into
you drawing the
where are
line,
you drawing the line? Because if you're drawing the line at obey and trust, then they
You're going
all
to compromise it somewhere else.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, there was another video that in the same regard to what you said. There was a woman, and I may not tell the whole picture, but we could theorize it. It was another video of a woman who she has her comments turned off and stuff like that on certain stuff, but she was married to a man and he got in a car accident, and he basically, after the car accident, he became became
Like
mentally
paralyzed?
deficient.
Oh, mentally
not just paralyzed, but like almost like stroke victim type thing, like where part of their brain cells die and stuff like that. And so she actually divorced him. And so, but she still takes care of him. She says it's her best friend,
Yeah, I've seen that
still
one.
looks after him. But then she remarried a guy. And so then a lot of like comments in the same regard, which I thought was fascinating, is this idea of, because everyone, when something's going wrong, everyone points back to the vows. But in the moment and moving forward, and even in the marriage, no one takes the vows serious.
Right.
You know, only when things go wrong, like, okay, you had an affair on me. Remember what the vow you made that it was like, well, for the past 5 years, I've been asking you to do X, Y, and Z. Why do the vows all of a sudden matter now?
Right.
Because someone decided to do the vow wrong. Like, you made vows too. And I think people always forget what vows you're actually making, and whether it's in the word or not, like not in the word in the Bible, but like in the words of what the officiant is saying or not. Like, you know what you said yes to, you know what
Yeah.
you've committed to. And so in the same way, if the man is making a vow to be the provider, to be the caregiver, to be the one that covers his wife, the
Right.
one that loves her, which that's his responsibility. Those are the vows he making. The woman, at least in the weddings I do, is like to respond to your husband's love, to find beauty on the inside and not on the outside, to allow your husband to cherish you and lead you and all these things like that. Like, and then all of a sudden it's, I'm with you in sickness and in health, times of poverty and prosperity. I submit to you. The man says, I commit to lead you, which there's a lot of women looking for men to hold up to that end of the
Right.
bargain
Yeah,
of the
that
vow.
part.
That from the marriage sprint shocked me the most.
Yeah.
Is that there were a lot of women who were submitting questions saying like, my husband won't lead.
Yeah.
So we see on social media is like this other side of women who are like, I don't want a man to lead.
Right.
INDEMPNT, whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want to be that. Even when I'm married, I want to be that. And then you have, which I always call the real world and not the social media world, which is the real world of Christian women and wives who are like, no, I want my husband to lead.
Yeah.
And so we live in this deposit of fantasy and fiction and nonfiction, you know. But everyone, I find it fascinating. Whenever stuff goes wrong, though, now everyone wants to talk about the vows.
Oh, yeah.
Now we want to take the vows serious. Now we want to have conversations about those vows. What about this? What about that? You know,
Right.
like, didn't you guys make vows about in prosperity and poverty?
Yeah.
You know, because you have some cases of someone in the marriage, like the husband or wife, lose their job, and then now all of a sudden, like, man, I don't know that I want to stick with you anymore.
Right,
Yeah.
You know,
right.
he's trying to get a job, he can't get it, but then maybe the spouse feels, I'm
That's
done.
one of
I'm
the
gonna walk out.
greatest.
You
That's
know,
one of
like,
the greatest examples that I had growing up is that we had these pockets of severe poverty, where the other spouse had to pick up where the other one was struggling.
Yeah.
So having
this
a
with your
business
parents,
with my
who are
parents, sorry.
immigrants from Iran.
who are immigrants, and so they had that immigrant lifestyle. But like, now as I'm married, watching how they went through those seasons and how, you know, my dad would work this job, and then when things were well, my mom could stay home. When things weren't well, my mom had to work 3 jobs, you know, and then when things were well again, my dad was able to put my mom through school, and then when things weren't well, then my mom was able to work with getting more, you know, and this just sort of give and take of being able to be there for one another. It's just that it was a really great thing to watch, because I felt like the vows were coming to life in the richer and the poorer, in all of those things when it came to my parents, because nobody, like my mom, I always enjoyed watching my mom never diminished my father because my father wasn't bringing home enough money at any time. And I've seen so many women are like, how can I respect my husband when I make more money? And I'm like, money ain't got nothing to do with you respecting your husband. It's not got to do with anything.
There was this TikTok that ended up getting, what is it called when they stitch it together with someone?
I think it's called a stitch. Yeah.
Okay, there's this girl, and she's...
Ashlee's not a TikToker like Sanaz.
Last I looked at her.
TikToker.
And she's sitting in her car, and she's like listening to music, and she's vibing, and she was like, and it said like on the text, it was like, if my husband doesn't make more than 7 figures or something like that, or 8 figures or something, whatever, something crazy. And then it stitched it, and the guy photoshopped her, and she works at a convenience store. And he was like, but you have zero desire to work for yourself. You just want somebody that's rich that you can pretty much live off of. So, I mean, like going back to the whole society thing of like, we have this expectation that the man is always supposed to supply, and we're just supposed to sit there and look pretty. And it's like, no, that's not the case. We're supposed to do this together. But you don't get to sit there,
and you don't get to sit there and say, I want my husband to provide financially, but then I don't want to do the home stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Like you don't get to put 0% or 10% effort and the husband puts 90.
Right.
That's not the way that it works. You can't. That's not fair.
Well, I want Nancy's in here, and we talked about this last episode, as a single lady. Like, what's your take on that video?
Yeah, I think it was interesting because, I mean, for me, when you think we just studied the book of Ephesians, and when you're talking
By
about...
the way, hold on. Jermaine's not disconnected. He's writing show notes. So anybody watching,
that's
you may
on our phone.
You may think like Jermaine is so uninterested in this conversation.
No, we'll do quotes and stuff.
He writes show notes and quotes.
His wife
and stuff.
obeys him.
Go ahead, Nancy.
Yeah, so
I'm putting Nancy talking about Ephesians. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh.
There it is.
Yeah, so when you think about the word submission, it's also another word for it is yielding. So when you think about when you're driving and you yield, you're just allowing somebody, giving them permission. So I think it takes a lot of like, you have to get rid of that pride when as a woman, and when you're in a relationship, it's not just you. So it's changing that selfish like mentality where it's just like, oh, it's all about me, what I say, what I do, so I have to obey, have to do everything you say. But I think it just comes with, like you guys said, like respect, and so I'm looking forward to, working through that, because I'm not going to say, oh, I'm going to be the most submissive wife, because there are things that I may, obviously struggle with or have challenges with. But I think I'm looking forward to somebody who is going to be able to sharpen me when I'm like, my husband's like, hey, I know we talk a lot about the wife submitting. But like you guys said, if I know that my husband's going to submit to the Lord, then I can fully trust that. So it's like, okay, so I know that you're submitting to the Lord, then I know that I can trust your word. So I think that's why for me, in the dating phase, obviously you guys know some of it. So it's learning experiences. And it's
here's the problem, and I think you just gave the key to it. Like, the time that you make that decision, whether you want to submit to him, is in the dating phase.
Yeah.
Because once you're married, whether he submits to the Lord or not, that is a vow regard. Like 100%. The vows don't have contingencies.
Right.
There's no and that's where I think a lot of marriages get twisted up and relationships get twisted, because they're saying, oh, I will hold up to this vow if he does this vow, or he says, I'll hold up to this vow if she does this vow. Well, actually, the Lord will hold you accountable for your vows that you've made, but they're not contingent upon each other. In no way do you say, hey, I'm going to, do this as long as you're doing this. The vows don't say that on the wedding day, nor does the Bible say that in any regards. Like husbands, love your wives and cover them if your wife submits to you. Because you may even have a wife that doesn't submit. But so, and that sometimes men will, I'll have more private conversation with men and they'll say, my wife's kind of a loose cannon, man. She rolls up in the school and she raises hell. She been in a restaurant, raises hell. And I'm at home. She runs us. I'm trying to kind of build a voice, but she won't really submit to my leadership. And I'm trying. And then that's where it's like, you made the vows. Like we could talk about things that we could try to do to get them in step, but the vows are the vows. And so I think the key caveat to what you just said is like, deciding if you would submit to him if he submits to the Lord in the dating phase.
Yeah.
Because once you're married,
Yeah, you're
you
locked
can't
in.
say, "Oh, well, I'll start submitting to you if you follow the Lord."
Right.
You
should
married
have
knowing
made
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should have
Yeah.
made that
You
judgment
made that
call.
Yeah.
decision.
Oh yeah.
You know, before you said I do.
Yeah. And-
Which is why podcast would be called Beyond I Do, because
Yeah.
it's all about the vow, which
Right.
this wasn't on purpose, but first full circle moment. The point of the podcast is Beyond I Do is the vow is the thing that
Yeah.
should anchor the marriage.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's the day you invite all your
Yeah.
friends, all your family. Nowadays, it's the day that you spend $30, $40, $50, $60,000. You know, I just did a wedding of a couple that spent $280,000 on their wedding. So people are spending, massive amount of money to get married, and yet they often put more work into planning the wedding than they do into having the successful marriage
Well, what's
that
crazy
it takes.
is that she said that they went through premarital counseling because she said we didn't talk about that in
right.
premarital, and I'm
that's
like,
scary.
And he
"Hey,
said, "Yeah, we did."
y'all went through premarital,
Right.
and you still can't say that you're going to obey your husband."
You did what only even on top of that 5% of couples do even prior to
Right.
marriage.
Right.
A lot of people don't even do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's why I found premarital very, very difficult, because for me, premarital's good and there's a lot of great stuff out there, and like our curriculum that we did kind of served as a level of premarital. But at the end of the day, like even with most couples that I've seen, when they see red flags, by time they've already made the decision, they put the ring on the finger, like they're moving forward,
Yeah.
whether the
Yeah.
red flag is there or not.
Right,
like,
right.
Yeah.
Like in all my years, only until this latest sprint, Ashlee and I did I actually hear of couples who have put pauses on their engagement, which to me was like a huge win of our curriculum, because
Sure.
I've been using other people's curriculums for years, and I'm not saying like ours is the best,
It
but
is.
I've tried to write it in the
Absolutely.
sense
Yeah.
of all the issues that I've had,
Right, right.
with other stuff that I've had, which is anything I ever took a couple through. Nothing was ever concerning enough for them to pump the brakes on their engagement. They always move forward, and I was like, that shouldn't happen. Something has to happen where they treat a red flag as a true red flag
Right.
before they say I do. Because once you get past I do, like you made the bed, you got to sleep in it.
Yeah.
This is your bed, you got to make. Now we can do stuff to hopefully help your spouse. We can pray for them. We can preach to them, and I'm saying in a preachy way, but literally preach to them, preach the gospel to them.
Yeah.
As a wife, you could live the gospel out for your husband. As a husband, you could live the gospel out for your wife. So there are things you can do, Lord willing, that helps your spouse become healthier. But the best thing you can do in your marriage is make all those decisions before I do.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like that
Right,
is
right.
that
Yeah.
the best thing
'cause
you can
that
do.
was,
You
like,
know?
That's kind of how you had said that a lot of people, their questions were like, how do I get my husband to lead the house? And it's like, well, he hasn't been leading it for how many years you've been married. So now it's kind of retraining the whole marriage and starting over in their mind of how do we get to like Nancy said, him being the head of the house and his foundation being on Christ. So I am able to follow him, because now all these women are now saying like, he doesn't want to lead, and I want him to lead.
Yeah.
And I think community and also like and resources is
Yeah.
a huge element to that, because like what I heard coming out from the sprint was a lot of men saying, hey, I'm gonna start leading. And as I tried to evaluate, like, well, what got the men to go from that? Like a wife who some of the couples have been married 15, 20 years, couldn't
Sure.
get their husband to
Right.
lead. But in 6 weeks, he made a decision
Right.
that I'm going to start doing it. And then the wives even gave feedback like he is doing it. He's coming home.
Right.
He's engaging with the kids. He's calling a shot on where he's going to take me out a date. Like, she's like, I could see it. He's making some leadership decisions, which are romantic to me, and how he's treating the kids. And as I thought about it, it's like, okay, one of the elements is as the men heard how much Ashlee honors me and appreciates me, and how much Sanaz, because you guys did a session, Sanaz appreciates you and honors you and cares about your spiritual and all these things like that. The husband is saying, well, how can I get that? And then there's like, I want my wife to talk to me about that.
Right.
Well, one of the elements is like how this spouse is saying how much I appreciate how much leading is caring. Like, there's no such thing as a good leader who
Right.
is demanding.
Right.
Like, those very rarely exist.
Right.
You know, like the leader who comes in and his dictatorship and cracks the whip. Like the best leaders that anyone ever talks about, even coaches and all that, are the ones who know their players really well, speak the language that they understand, cast vision, care, are empathetic, are passionate as well. They have a plan. And so a great husband, if he leads his house, is not one that comes home and goes, that's it. I mean, I don't care what you think we need to do with our money.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing with our money. Like that's not what is leadership.
Right. Yeah.
And I think when some women hear that, oh, husband lead, if they're in the negative side, they're thinking that, oh, he
That they don't
comes
have any
home,
say.
Correct.
he takes his shoes off, puts them
Yeah.
wherever he wants and says, get over it. That's where my shoes are going. This is what we're doing with our vacation.
Sure.
I don't care. This is what, or I know we only had this much money, but I got a new motorcycle. Too bad. It's like they think that's, oh, I'm supposed to submit to that. And it's like,
Yeah.
no, that's it in its most unhealthy form.
Right.
But in its healthiest form, it rallies the family together.
Right.
It's like, how are you guys doing?
Yeah.
What's going on? Oh man, well we could do that, but maybe we think about this. And man, I need you guys right now. I'm having a really tough time. And you don't have to do, some men are much more stoic and like you don't have to do it the way I'm saying it, but it is a very understanding way of like, hey, you're gonna, sometimes with Ashlee, like you're gonna have to give me grace right now. I'm really stressed out.
Yeah.
Like
sure.
if you add anything
For sure.
more on me, like I'm probably gonna pop.
Yeah.
Like, and that's a form of leadership that says I'm aware that you're like kind of getting on my nerves right now, and I love you too much to lash out. So
Sure.
just
Yeah.
give me some space right now.
Yeah, Nathan
And,
likes doing that a lot.
Yeah.
And I think something
What do you do, Nathan? No, go ahead, Nathan.
something my dad has always told me too, like I admire their marriage and their relationship, is when he leads, he's like, when it comes to finances, I have these conversations with your mom, not because I want her to make all the decisions, but because I want to take her into consideration. And, maybe there's sometimes that something that your mom sees that's a blind spot for me that will help me, so I think it's just having that dialogue that really helps the relationship. And he is the leader of the household. It's very clear. And now seeing those seasons change, and now he's like a stay-at-home dad. He's washing dishes. He's cleaning the house, making sure that he preps the food for my mom when she comes home. She's working full-time. So I think it's just constantly, like Sanaz, you mentioned this earlier, seeing the seasons change, I think gives me peace and knowing like, hey, it's mostly about endurance. It's not so much like, oh, I got to make sure I'm always the breadwinner, or I got to
and
make sure.
sometimes in a race you got to pass the baton and
Yeah.
let somebody else run for a minute, and then you could take over when you're good and rested.
Yeah.
Well, and I
and
think
leadership has nothing to do with being the top dog. Like,
Right.
As
That's
a
what I was
leader,
gonna say.
I'm most proud, like pastoring the church, I'm most proud when I could just sit in my seat and I just see everyone that I've had a piece of, that I've helped train in some way or encourage in some way, and they run the whole church.
Yeah.
And I go, man, this is great. This is it. It's impossible. It's not being the figurehead. It's not being the face of anything. It's saying, I know, and especially like in a spouse thing, it's like, okay, we know we're the backbone of this family. When this family operates healthy, like, and we could just sit back and we see that our kids are making good decisions. We see everybody's healthy and the family environment in the house is strong. It's like you can sit back and be like, okay, we're doing a good job together.
Yeah.
It,
Well, yeah, because like what Nancy said, and to go with what you said, is the care. You care about me so much. Like you're saying your dad's now stay at home, your mom's at work, but your dad cares so much about your mom. He wants nothing other but to care for her, and that's doing the home stuff. So when she comes home, she can now care for him. Yeah. He took the weight off there. Now she'll take the weight off when she comes home. Yeah. It's one of those things I think we've talked about before when we've had a seat talk, and we've talked about it on here too when we were at your guys' house and we were talking about the what was it, the 80 20 was it? We didn't say
no, it's like not it's.
What do we
What
say?
was it?
No, we said that like
Oh,
remember the
no,
housework
it's like
and then the work life.
So we're 50-50,
Yes.
but like at
Yes.
home, we as women might be 80-20, or we might do
Be
80%
60-40 or
of the
something, yeah.
of the home and 20% of the finances and
finances.
work. You guys take the brunt of like the stress from work. You take 80% of that, and you do about 20% of the homework. but it evens out. Like it's a good partnership because you don't feel like it's not like we both work 100%, bring the same amount of money, have the same amount of stress, but then the wife is doing all the home stuff. That's where she begins having resentment and feeling like she is taking the brunt of everything.
And that's where the mentality of dictatorship comes in. Well, he just wants me to do all this. And it's like, no, you've created that habit.
And it's impossible to
And you're not
resent
saying
your
50-50
husband.
in the relationship because that's 100-100. What you're saying is 50-50 in terms of time.
Yes.
And effort.
And what you're
Yes.
taking care of.
Yeah, I just want to overclarify because there's that new like.
Oh, yeah.
There's the
100%.
wave of like marriage isn't 50-50. It's 100-100, which I agree with. But I didn't want anyone to hear that that's what you mean. It's like, no.
because, like,
y'all know what we mean.
Well, 'cause, like,
Trust
Nathan,
me,
tell us
man. You do
your
this
guys'
podcast enough. You know where people fill in the gaps. You know.
Because Nathan, what would your guys' dynamic be like in the morning, like for getting your kids ready, and what does the day of your guys' life look like?
Yeah, so like Sanaz communicated early on, like, hey, I think if you help me get the boys ready, do their clothes, do their hair, brush their teeth, it allows me to go make their lunches and set up their breakfast. And then when they're done, then I'll go check in on them. When they're done eating breakfast, then she'll be getting ready and then she'll get out of the house. And so by that point, then that's my time to go and work out. Yeah. So for her, it was like, hey, what can I do to help you in that morning? She understands that working out is important to me, but obviously I'm not going to neglect my household and the kids. So it was like, hey, I just need you to get them ready, need you to get their clothes ready, brush their teeth, do their hair, and that will alleviate a lot of that burden for me.
Right.
And then, so that works for us. But I think like in all of everything like we're talking about, and even like what Nancy was sharing from her perspective being single, and we talked about it throughout the sprint, and you guys communicated it beautifully, is just how important communication is. And without it, a lot of this just perpetuates, and it's like a fire that keeps fueling, where communication can alleviate a lot of this, but oftentimes the husband or the man is so prideful that they don't want to come and express like, I'm at 100 right now. Like, don't. So they just rather come home, sit on the couch, be quiet, and not say anything, and leave it up to their wife to interpret what's going on. And they don't have to go into detail, but it's like what you said. It's just, hey, I'm at 100. I can't take on anymore.
Yeah.
Just give me some time, whether that's the night, the day, whatever that looks like. But it's just like, if that's even just the form. Now, I'm an over communicator, so
and I love it.
Tell her, more than needed, but that's just me and how I'm built and my personality. But also I've learned I've learned, even in doing so, I have to protect my wife too. So I can't share everything with her.
Yeah.
Not so much my emotions, but just like maybe things at work or what I may be processing with other people. Like, I'm not going to bring her in on that. I want to protect her as well. But at the same time, I do kind of articulate kind of where I'm at or what I'm feeling emotionally. And that's helped us from the very beginning. Yeah. Even when it comes to raising the kids or the finances, we just over communicate. But I think like maybe in a single perspective, like it's easier to just continue to go with emotions because it's safe, rather than communicating through some of the things like, what does obey mean to you? Through, if I'd imagine they talked about it in premarital based on what the pastor said. Yeah. So maybe for her, she blew it off or didn't even comprehend that or anything. Or maybe she did and she just chose not to bring it up to him.
Right.
Because I'd rather just, I already got my dress, I already got the ring. Like, I'm not going to bring that up. Like, the day's going to happen. Like, oh no, we're going through with this. He should already know
what he's getting himself into.
For sure. So I think just that whole point, you rather walk in the safety rather than having the hard conversations and making the big decision to say, I'm willing to pause, I'm willing to walk away, because there's certain things that I see that I'd rather address the red flags now than when the marriage comes.
Right, because there was a time too, Adam and I had a conversation, and not that we talked about like what our red flags were, but I know one of his red flags, because there are times too, which still learning, still growing, I was quick with an attitude. Quick.
I saw it.
Yeah.
we know.
You really? Quick with an attitude.
Not you.
But.
So unbelievable.
But if it didn't turn around quick, he was like, that was my red flag. Because if you were always quick, like he said, because like, what I'm assuming, this woman may or may not been the one to pop off all the time and like the obey. Like, oh, I ain't gonna listen to you. If I have my feelings, I have my ways. This is what I'm sticking to, and this is how I feel. Like I said, my way or the highway. So I remember that, like, that was something that we did communicate. I said, what would have been a red flag for you if I didn't reflect on my own actions? He goes, it was your attitude. He goes, if I knew that you could not get out of your own attitude and stick in your way and not hear anybody else or not reflect on yourself to say that you were wrong, our marriage wouldn't work.
For sure.
Because you definitely would not have trusted me or obeyed me or thought that what I was saying was right. You would have just been in Ashlee's own flesh and saying your way.
Yeah.
And so it was because with attitude comes a lot of emotions. And so and anger and judgment and resentment and push off trauma. Yes. And so that was something that I know that we would talk all the time. And it'd be funny because he's such a mellow guy. When I get attitude, he'd be like, are you okay?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, it was one of those like checking moments of like, oh, he's not matching me. And I've never met someone who didn't match me. And so then it made me reserve. It made me trail back like, oh, he's not going there with me.
Right.
Actually, I remember early on, Ashlee told me a story of a guy she dated who's you remember last week's episode, like very well-known famous guy. She said, yeah, one time I forgot what you said to him, and she said he went into the staircase and he started crying. Oh, yes. And he just started weeping profusely. And he said, you know, what you said was really mean, and he's just like crying and weeping. And I'm looking at her and I'm like, there was a couple things like, why would your words like mean that much? Because it really wasn't. I don't even remember if you remember what you said. It's a long time ago now to that person, but it was the regards of like just whatever. It was like, but his emotions, like he would yell back at her if she was crying. He would cry. Right. Like so in her sense, like he would match her energy every time, and that's what she was used to. She just matched to most guys she was with. They didn't know how to level off their emotions. Right. They may have been stoic at one point, but then you know when they were yelling at her. Yeah. They were demeaning her. They were cussing her out. They were that, and then so she's matching it, and Ashlee's cussing him out, and then him, if she's said something mean and she's crying, he'll start crying or whatever it is, or he'll just get angrier. And it was I just like
remember that story.
I like I can believe that someone could do that, but I couldn't believe that was going to be any beneficial in our relationship.
Right.
And if you're yelling at me and I start yelling at you back, I don't see how that's gonna go anywhere.
Yeah.
Not that we've had it perfected, but
that also goes to the communication part, because that I had to learn how to communicate.
Yeah. Sure.
Because I didn't know how to communicate. I was only taught from my parents, and I would take my dad's side, which my dad had the attitude. My dad was loud. Oh, if you're one thing that you're not going to make me do, and I told Adam this, and he knew, you're not going to make me feel dumb. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to yell louder than you, and make sure I'm louder than you, so I drown you out. Right. I don't care what you're saying, because I know it's going to hurt me. But if I scream louder and maybe dig a little harder,
and hurt you.
I'm going to hurt you before you hurt me, sort of thing. And that was how I learned communication, because I saw it with my dad all the time. And it was just the communication part on how we aren't really taught at an age of how to communicate. You're taught how to talk, but like Adam has made the very good concept when you're raising kids. If you're not having the conversation and communication at the table with your kids and teaching them how to talk, somebody else will, or they're having it at the lunch table.
Great quote.
So,
it's a great quote.
It is.
It's gonna be in divorce proof your life.
Yeah. So no, but yeah, I think that all the communication, but a lot of people with the whole matching and the being aware of your red flags and being honest with them and not trying to just cover it like Gabe preached so effortlessly, covering it with your grace and grace and grace and relationship. Yeah.
God wants to show off, huh, Gabe? That's what you said?
Yeah.
God wants to show off, and he wants to forgive you and forgive you, give you grace, give you more grace.
But that's what a lot of people do in relationships. They cover up their person's red flags. That's why a lot of people get divorced, because they're like, I love this person. I want to get married. I want to go walk down the aisle. I regardless vows or not, and I don't care that I saw that they scream at me, disrespect me. I'm going to show grace and show grace and show grace until you all out of grace.
Yeah.
Or it's just your normal. It's just this idea of like you, especially for us who have been, in these relationships before we entered a healthy relationship. You're in these unhealthy, toxic relationships. I had a girlfriend who, she had this boyfriend, and her thing that she would always say is, "Man, we fight hard, but we love hard." And I'm like, yeah, that's just toxic. But she thought that it was sexy for some reason. Like the screaming in the parking lot was cute to her. And it's just like, oh my gosh, no. Like, give me peace.
Not speaking for 3 days type of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Oh
Yelling
my
in the
God.
parking lot at church in front of your kids and then coming here and raise a hallelujah. And
Yeah.
your kids are looking at you like you're crazy.
Well, that's the,
Ashlee went into that.
I did. I went into the
church version of
version
it.
of it.
Church application.
Well, I said that. I said so at the last women's event. I said at the very end, I said, "There's somebody in here who you've been praying for your children who are wayward to come back, but they're not going to come back until you start living a life that's not hypocritical."
Right. Yeah, never.
I said, so if you want your children to come back to the Lord, then you need to live a life that's holy and that's reflective of that. And then if they do, and if you do, then they'll come back.
Yeah, right.
But so not be hypocrite. That was a random little left turn we just took.
Great.
Sorry.
No,
But it's true. Many years ago, and I've said it many times, but I did youth counseling for a particular young youth, and when he finally broke open the chamber, because he was a bad kid, he was disobedient, arrested a few times, blah 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 blah, and then the mom's like, he needs to get right with God, and he needs to sit with you, and so we'd sit down, and when he finally was like, I don't respect all this, and he was talking about church and faith and religion, and
why would he?
He was like, because my mom's got a few guys that she brings in the house every weekend, and they sleep over, and they play my PS5. At that time, it was probably PS3 or whatever it was. But it's like, he's like, they play my PlayStation. They try to talk. She tries to tell them to talk to me when I'm bad. And she's like, so she's sleeping around with guys. They stay over at our house. And then she goes, and then he goes, and then she comes to church on Sunday, and she lifts her hands. She worships God, tells me to get right with God.
Yeah.
And he was like, she needs to get right with God. And then it's just like, man, that's unfortunate. And I would let her know and talk to her, and there was her own things and her own reasons on why she felt validity on what she was doing. And my son needs to just be my son, right? It's the vow thing, right? He makes his vows, but I don't have to keep my vows. Like I want my son to be his
like the do as I say, but not as I do.
Yeah. Like parents all the time bring up, obey your mother and father. They forget all the other stuff that says, don't provoke your children to wrath and anger. Is it like, so it's like they forget all those other verses that deal with the responsibility of parenthood, but it's like, obey me because I'm your mother and father, which goes back to the marriage, the husband obedience thing. Wife, obey me. Obedience is not commanded or demanded. Obedience comes from a place of trustworthiness, right? Now, you have to do it regardless. So children have to obey their parents regardless, whether your parents are sane or not, and vice versa. Parents, you have a responsibility for your children regardless of how they act as well. And so you can make efforts to try to get healthier and all that stuff, but we all have our vows that we are subsequently held accountable to that are not, no vow is contingent vows.
Yeah.
And so even our dad, like he one of his clips went viral about the father pursuing the children. There were a lot of older men who were like, heck no, you're an idiot, saying Pastor Gio is an idiot for saying fathers pursue your children. And these are people who are holding vows contingent.
Yeah.
Well, I will pursue my children if they do X, Y, and Z.
win.
And it's like no, the vows are vows with no contingencies. So I can have disciplines. So like, yeah, if my son is acting up, and I could take stuff away from him. I could take his phone away from him. I could take his iPad away from him. So there's still discipline.
Mind you, he doesn't have a phone.
Right. He's but I'm saying I'm putting in terms of people who have teenagers or whatever, the level of disciplines, but can't go out with your friends or whatever it is. But in the same time, it's like, but he's not going to not have my love. He's not going to not have my provision. He's not going to not have and provision. I mean that my presence, me being there for him. Yeah. Like I'm going to go to his games, whether he says thank you or not. Now it's my job as a father to train him. You need to say thank you. You need to show appreciation.
Right. Yeah.
Go to your grandma and grandpa and give them a kiss. But if he doesn't do that, like it doesn't all of a sudden mean like, well, now my love is growing distant from him.
Right.
And you can't do that in marriage. You can't you made the vow, gotta hold to the vow. Like there's no contingencies based on it. You can't. And if the moment you start doing that, then you have to uphold to the tick for tack. So it's like, okay, a wife saying, well, I don't sleep with my husband because he doesn't take out, and then I would do this in marriage counseling all the time. I'm not giving my husband physical intimacy because he doesn't take out the trash or help the kids get ready. I say, okay. So next week he starts getting the kids ready and he starts taking out the trash. How much sex are you giving him? Like, whoa. Calm the races. I'm like, no, if you had a reason for, if you're holding contingencies for your spouse, if you had a reason for why you're not doing something, tell me if they start doing it, what changes and how often, whether it's through intimacy or anything else. Because you're playing tick for tack. Now, I don't think you should play tick for tack regardless, but if you're going to play that game, tell me at what point do you start changing it. Almost always in marriage counseling, no one knew how to respond to that side of things. Or the husband, like, oh, I don't do this. I don't let her do this because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, well, she'll stop nagging you. So are you going to start dating her?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't know? If you said you weren't dating her because she nags you, if she says she's not going to do that anymore in the way that you're equating, which is whatever you think, starting an argument about little things, whatever. If she stops doing that, where's the first date you're taking your wife? I don't know. Well, then you don't mean it.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
You're just finding excuses to have,
100%.
like what Sanaz was just saying, toxicity in the relationship. You don't really want to do the work to get healthy.
Right.
You know? And going back to Gabe, grace is required. So grace makes an effort regardless of reciprocation, you know? And so grace continually makes that effort where God is continually chasing after us and continually coming after us, and his love he's like trying to show us grace. And there is a time where he does, like, okay, you made your decision, but that is long suffering. Right. He is so long suffering. He's so steadfast that it continually chases. And you rarely find it in the unhealthy marriages that are looking for just people to do the little things and, you know, check off boxes, that they really want the healthy marriage at the end of it. You know, not a lot of people are really looking for that.
Yeah.
They say they want it in theory.
Yeah. They don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
Never.
Yeah. Good stuff. Where we at? Oh, it's been a great episode so far.
Wait, I have a
I
question.
think. Oh, you have a question?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just want your perspective because you guys covered this before a little bit, but
Oh God.
are
you
you eating
eating
your
food now?
snack?
He
Snack.
needs a
It's-
snack. 12:17.
He's
After
diabetic.
12.
He has low cholesterol.
I am not.
Nathan didn't want that rumor going
Go
around.
ahead.
No,
Deb.
he's not. So when it comes to like males pursuing, what do you think is the reason why there's so much
Nathan, just open
passivity?
your beef jerky.
The
Put it on
like,
the table. Who cares?
yeah, you can share it too if you want. I'm just
Oh,
kidding.
she's not gonna share.
No.
Okay, males pursuing.
Yeah. So what do you think is like the reason for the passivity, like men being passive? Because you mentioned in marriage, you know, women are asking for men to lead. So that makes me think like, okay, so they're being passive. What is it, do you think that, is it because women are like, well, I'm going to do it all type of thing? Or what is your perspective on what do you think is causing men to be passive? And not all men, of course, but just off of your experience. And
More
your
times
concept.
than not, what I found is a lot of men who have not had male figures in their life really struggle with what that looks like in marriage and a relationship, particularly if they came from a single mother home where mom did do everything and mom kind of had to be dad at the same time, but her version of dad had a lot of empathy, you know, be riddled in that. And so when he gets married, if he's with his wife, he's looking for her to fill in that single mother model. Whereas the woman is actually like, well, I'm trying to have a healthy model of husband, wife, and he has no framework of what that is or what that looks like. So therefore, in his cautiousness or in laziness or whatever it may be, he falls into the void. And where women don't see leadership, women will step in. That's the whole story of
Fact.
Deborah and Judges.
Yeah.
You know, Deborah and Judges the Bible says there was not found a man who could lead, so he chose Deborah. So I think that's the story of women, where women do not find a male to lead, then they will lead. And they'll do a stellar job at it. They'll crush at it. It's not that God sees any inadequacies in women's ability, and they all have different strengths. It's that God has seen a system and created a system in which it works best in our human relationship, right? You look at lions; they have a different relationship. The women actually go and hunt and kill, and then the lion, he stays back and he kind of protects, but he don't go out and fight and feed. The lionesses do that, and so it's not that God has a patriarchal
Or
mentality
favoritism,
or a matriarchal mentality. It's that He's created a relational system for husband and wives that works best in our human relationship. And so, but that doesn't mean that if any of that is out of whack or devoid, that a person doesn't have the ability to step into that. But it's not going to be in the purest way that God's created, with the healthiest outcome that God has created, which the healthiest outcome is to be a father in the home and a mother in the home, and a father filling in his place and his gifting, and a mother filling in his place. So a lot of the men that I'm talking to, most of the biggest challenges come from a single mother, in the sense of not really just the single mother, but the absentee father. So that's the big aspect. No father around. Whether the mother chose for that to be that way, or the father chose to be that way, but absentee.
Right.
Or then a man who had an unhealthy father figure in his life that didn't exhibit anything. He was what we talked about. He's the guy who came home and just cracked open a beer and did a 12-pack every night before bed, and then mom just cooked food and gave it to him on the seat, and then he got up and he went to bed, and the son was like, "Dad, are you going to come to my game this weekend?" He's like, "No, I'm going fishing, like with my buddies, like everything's around." So then the same saying, it's an absentee father. It's the same outcome. Yeah. It's the guy's so the young man, I've rarely met, and I've met them, but I've rarely met a guy who's rejected. Like, no, I don't want to lead my family, or I don't want to be, I don't want my wife to look up to me in that regard. Most of them go, "No, I do. I don't know how to." And so the wife's frustrated because she's like, "I'm telling him to lead." And it's like, if you keep telling someone what they ought to do, they're going to just reject it. That's just what's going to happen. So that's not the outcome, that it could be. So with most of the men, it's like that you're going to have to make a big effort to find male role models. And that's why you have great programs in inner cities, which have the highest rate of lacking male role models. You have like Boys and Girls Club and stuff like that, where there's a lot of young men making an effort to be father figures, because they realize how important that is. In the years I spent in youth ministry and children's ministry, I saw how valuable that was, particularly for young men. It was great for young women who didn't have father figures, but it's really great for young men because you're showing them what this looks like. So if they get married one day, at least they have some type of pull that they can pull from, and feed off of to be that healthy male figure. Which I think we're blessed, where our dad worked really hard, but and so he may not have been able to make it to all the games, all that stuff like that. But our dad has always been like a very positive male role model, an effective leader, and in the home, like my mom and dad really respected each other and really sacrificed for each other, and everything that we saw them do it as a team. So we had a great image to have and then just build off of, which my dad didn't particularly have with his parents, and stuff like. So my dad was kind of starting for square one on that. And even my mom, her mom had, 3 ex-husbands and kicked out the house at 16. So like our mom didn't even have that either. They had to really build that which for them, it was the Lord. Like for them, it was their relationship with God and their relationship in the church and community that helped them really have a healthy marriage standard to what we saw growing up as children in that way. And even in their perfections, us being able to see like, wow, well, we saw their foundation and we could build off of that in our own relationships. But a lot of young men, like, they don't have any of that. Like they've never seen a man come and date their mom. They've never seen a man love their mom. They've never seen a man truly sacrifice for their mom. So then they just kind of perpetuate, the same thing when they get married, which is, well, you're the wife. You take the lead. My mom's done it my whole life, you know?
Yeah.
You do it. And then the wife's like, no, I don't want it.
I don't want to.
Well,
Doesn't want to.
I want to ask Nathan, when you were in your dating stages, what was something that gave you confidence? Because like Candy Nancy was asking too, the question of like, why is it men not trying to pursue and lead and find that godly woman or be in a relationship? What was your mindset behind because I don't want to talk about his. Yours was more of a foundational on Christ and what that looked like. Like, what was it something that you were looking for? What dates did you go on and you were like, yeah, that's not the one? What was it something that you built the confidence to, even to say, I may go on this date and I may get shut down?
Yeah, well, because I dated later in life.
You need to talk in your mic more.
Sorry.
Because I dated later in life due to stuff I've talked about, just my own insecurities and stuff like that. So by time I was confident in who I was, that I said, okay, it's time now to put myself out there, essentially. So when I did start going on those,
you need to talk in the mic.
when
too.
I started going on those, going on those dates, by that point I was secure in who I was as a man. I was secure in my faith. I was secure in my profession. I'd gone through schooling and college and all of that. So there were a lot of foundational stuff that was secure in my life.
And was that something you needed or wanted, or were you just...
That's what I want. Yeah, that's for sure what I wanted. But there were still overcoming those insecurities along the way. So like I wouldn't know how to approach women, so that would have been part of that. So it's like, it's easier for me to just build my career, go to school, do well, rather than going down this lane of trying to pursue women and being insecure about the possible rejection and all of that. Yeah. So it's like, no, I'm going to just be good at what I'm good at type thing. But there came a time where I was more confident in who I was, my emotions and everything like that. It's like, okay, I could begin to put myself out there. And so by that point, though, because I was so confident in who I was as a young man and who I believed God wanted for me, I had very high standards at that point. So when I started to date and I saw those more like yellow flags, even on a first date, and it was like, hey, let's go have, I wish I knew now more so because I would go straight for the dinner thing, and I
You
make
wish
fun
there
of
was
Adam.
a podcast that was around.
Yeah,
that
where I
would
said
help
like
you
I
date
should have
and-
started at coffee or breakfast before I wasted a lot of money going to dinners.
And they'd be like nice restaurants.
Yeah,
They'd be like-
because that's just who I was. But
Big baller.
I wish I started with coffee. But it was at those settings of being very, and that I've shared that before, like with Sanaz and even with these other women, I was very intentional with these dates. And so it wasn't this like interview, but in a way it was just very organically, and so I'd be looking for like, hey, where do you see yourself? What do you do now type thing? Where do you see yourself in the future type thing? And we talked about it. One girl was like, yeah, I don't really have a plan. Like, I'm currently, a receptionist and I'm okay, doing that the rest of my life. And that's okay if that's...
Deanna's like, what? Deanna's like...
No.
Huh? Fix his mic. What does he need to do? Talk in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel like I'm pretty
I feel
close
you-
I
to
can
it.
hear you,
I'm like,
but it's fine.
I feel like I'm yelling.
Yeah.
And
Tremaine's
she was,
ruining the vibes right now.
Right, golly. I was so into this.
she was like, I just want to be a receptionist. And I was like, okay, that's okay. But for me, I wanted to see something that she had ambition for.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that it was like,
You down
There was
you're a
nothing wrong with being
receptionist.
a receptionist.
Not at all.
No.
It was
She
that
was
she's
just
like,
content.
yeah, that's it. Like, that's
that was
all
it.
I had.
That's
Like,
all. That was her ambition. So
not
for
even
me,
like I want a family one day,
No.
or I
Right,
want to
right.
be,
she
it was
said,
just like,
I don't know.
Yeah.
She said, I don't know. I could be a receptionist the rest of my life. That was it. Like there was no other meat on the bone. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I was
Yeah.
like, oh
And
no.
no family, no
Nothing.
hobby,
No
every
nothing.
time-
I mean, that one was dry. Like it was like, oh, anything.
and this person
like,
isn't
listen-
like 20. She was a young woman. So it was
Yeah.
like by then you'd at least have some type of picture.
Absolutely, because I
what
was
you were
dating
aspiring
around
for.
my age, so we're talking early 20s to mid 20s by this
Yeah.
point. You're talking 23, 24, 25. So
Yeah.
it's like, so no meat on the bone type thing. So for me, I was like, this is great. I had a great evening with you, but for me, I can't see this going any further in my head, right? And for all intents and purposes, you probably didn't want to have anything to do with me either.
Right.
But for me, I was like, I'm not going to pursue this anymore. There was nothing that I saw that had potential.
Gotcha.
So I navigated those dates or women like that with that intent of saying like, who are you in Christ? Like, where is your faith right now? What ambition do you have? Where do you see yourself? You know, and not the first date, but after a couple dates, just talking about already like family. Like, what does that look
Well,
like?
and I would ask this question too, because I think a lot of men are intimidated. I'll ask this. Then were you, when you met Sanaz and you
Because
went
I'm
on-
a 10.
Well, that's because
Because
what-
he's
Was I
like, that's a
intimidated by
10.
her?
not intimidated.
100%
like, could you-
intimidated.
but
Look
like,
at this.
Is there
I'm
was
so
there
scared.
was there a confidence that you saw about her that could intimidate you? Because there's a lot of men that feel that way about women. That they're, even though they think that they're a 10, they see a woman that they're like, man, this is a 10. Will
Could I
this
even-
work?
yeah.
Does this work? Or am I scared too
Nathan
that I
knew he
could
was
get
a
shut
10.
down?
No, no.
Nathan knew it. 10 for 10.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
makes 20.
No.
So
No.
like when you met Sanaz and you knew who she was, her background,
Yeah, because she
everything-
began. Obviously, she began to check boxes off of her faith,
Okay.
her family, her ambitions, what she had already achieved in her life at that point, where she saw herself in
much
the
older.
future.
And there was some good meat on them bones.
Yeah, so there was something for me to figuratively and literally. The boxes began to get checked. But yeah, like what Adam was saying, I was confident who I was. So I was like, no, just as much as I want a 10, I
Yeah.
also know I'm a catch.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to be
I think-
intimidated.
Hallelujah.
That's
through
the
that.
part that I think that part.
Yeah,
is
I don't
that
have to
you-
settle because I
right,
knew I was
you
a catch.
knew.
Yeah.
You knew.
Yeah.
You had
and I'm
the
not talking
confidence.
looks. I'm talking about what I'm
Oh, yeah.
bringing
We
to the
talked about
table.
that on the last podcast.
Yeah, I'm talking about my
People know.
leadership, right? I'm
Yeah.
talking about my faith. I'm talking about my foundation. I'm talking about what
Yeah,
I'm
and if a
secure
person
in.
defined that as a 4, that's all them. Like,
Yeah,
you knew
yeah,
that was
for
it,
sure.
you know,
but
like-
for me, these
Yeah.
are things that I'm looking for also in a spouse. So for me, these are 10s that I'm bringing to the table. So I'm looking for the same thing to match that. So no, by the time I met Sanaz, it was like, okay, she began to check those boxes very quickly within the first 2 to 4 dates type thing.
Not for Adam, but
No, yeah, not for Adam. But Adam
he wasn't
also,
the one marrying the meat on the bone.
yeah. But he played a good voice
was a
for
good
me
cynic.
because
Well-
this is
Yeah.
now the first woman that was walking down that I was
This is his
walking
first
with,
girlfriend.
for that,
Yeah.
past the second date type thing. So it was like, hey, I really like this woman. What do you think? What do you see? Type thing, So he had his opinion, of course, like we talked about in the beginning. But I continued to confess, like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Like these are the conversations we're having. This is what I love about her. This is what I see, type thing. And he talked me through some of that because I needed that perspective from someone who's kind of been around the streets.
Yeah.
I haven't
thanks,
been,
guys.
so sorry.
Hey, I'll get that. I'll get.
I have a
Around
question.
the streets and in the streets.
Jeez.
I have a
Get
question.
ripped up.
yes, sir.
This is absolutely riveting. I didn't know the story arc with Pastor Adam and Sanaz and your guys'
Oh, villain story.
early
Yeah,
animosity. What was the turning point for you, Pastor Adam?
He's still working on it.
Turning what?
I'll tell you this.
What was the
what?
turning point?
So,
when
well,
was
I'll
it? It
tell
was
you-
like, wow, turns out she's amazing.
I'll tell you this because it's a little full circle. Me,
I'm just kidding.
say why I'm amazing.
I
but,
am. I'm gonna get there.
I will tell you this: how he's talking about those first few dates, and when we would talk and we talk about our character and things like that. I very vividly remember. I think it was our second date, maybe even our first date, and we were talking about ourselves. Every time I would say something about myself, he would always be like, "Oh my God, you're just like my brother Adam. You're just like my brother Adam." And I'm like, I gotta meet this guy Adam because he sounds amazing. And then I met him and he hated me.
And we just blow up.
Well, that makes
It just
sense.
blows
Because-
up.
Because you're so much alike.
We're
Yeah.
very alike.
Yeah,
And that's why. But go ahead,
Very alike.
say why you love me.
No, I'm trying to answer his question.
I'm getting
trying
there.
to see if it's ever turned around.
That TikTok.
Before,
No, there wasn't
you
a big moment.
Yeah,
was.
there was. No, I don't. I have to think if
Don't
there
mind me, I'm
like
just
was an
recording this.
actual moment or
Event or
memory,
something.
but probably I'm trying to think. Yeah, right. I'm trying to think. I mean, well, once Nathan decided he was going to marry her, I mean, after I got to know Sanaz, after, it's like a few times of her coming to family stuff, I was like, oh, because really after early on, you toned it back. That whole, I don't know, I can't remember if Nathan talked to you or something, was just like, hey, Adam's a little different, or you picked it up.
He
or,
didn't. I just realized that, like, and in I realized that I couldn't speak to you that way because I was coming from I was coming as a 32-year-old woman who had seen a lot. And I was I realized that my approach was wrong because you were 22, you were a man, and you didn't, we didn't have the relationship at the time where I could just be because I wasn't wrong. Yeah. What I was saying to this day, I was saying wasn't wrong. So it was just that I was, but it was coming from a place
and she was an
where
outsider.
I was an outsider, but it was coming from a place
not in general, but like an outsider to me, and in our family dynamic,
But it was coming from a place where I had been in those situations so many times, and I was speaking from a place of trauma. And so I realized that after, because I did notice he was like, I'm not. Oh, okay. Shut up, lady, type of thing. And I was like, okay, I don't know if I could do that. And then I reflected and I was like, oh, I was speaking from a place of like my own trauma. And so I don't want to put that on him. I'm just going to let our relationship become whatever relationship it's going to become. So
when she reeled that back, I got to see her for like what she would have been if it didn't come in that setting. So then I was like, oh wow, I really like her for Nathan, and I like her in general. And then I started to see, which is like what we relate to the most, is because like me and Sanaz are very empathetic. We love very hard, and we're very protective. And so once I saw that there were sides of that with her and towards Nathan, and it was almost like, oh, I could, because I have always been very, as me and Nathan have grown closer, I'd always become very protective of Nathan. So then it was like, oh, Sanaz could do that. It like got that now. Like she could look out for him. She can back him up and stuff like that. And so not that he needs that. It was just that was our dynamic. So once I saw she had that, then it was like, oh, I love for him. And then I started to get to know her family, which I love her family. I love her parents. I love her brother. And at the time where I was driving out and hanging out, because I'm very family oriented, so her family was always doing stuff. So then we started going to like Persian New Year, and I'm like, oh, I love this dynamic. I love this family.
We started joking that like my parents are going to change the will, and half of their stuff is going to go to Adam and not Nathan.
And not Nathan. Because I'd go to her house, and I'm just like, I'm talking to her dad for hours,
just
because I have that old soul. Like I
my
like
dad.
those
My
old,
dad promised him a Peter Lick when he dies.
Which Peter Lick is like the best photographer in the world. So me and her dad's got some stuff going on. So we've had to go into business together maybe one day, but no. So once that was really, and that happened fast because they got engaged after 5 months, 6 months.
We got engaged after 5 months, and then we were engaged for 5 months. So
they were married
from
within a year.
Beginning to wedding day was 10 months.
Nice. Yeah, which I don't recommend, and I don't think neither do they for the average person. But it was right for them,
we were older.
Right
we both had
us.
our own homes. We both had our own careers. There was a lot of stuff that we had already we didn't have
and
to.
And they had pastors that spoke to them along the whole way, because you recommend you got to at least see someone within all 4 seasons, but in their case they had a lot of people who had seen them independently that like really co-signed really fast on the marriage, which helped because community spoke into that really fast,
and probably spoke into those things you would have seen through.
Who did your guys' premarital? Did you guys do premarital?
My former pastor.
Oh. Did you like it?
The dad. Oh, yeah. It was quick. For us, it was pretty quick. But I very vividly remember being in premarital counseling. And the first question that he asked us, because he's like, this isn't going to be a traditional premarital because, you're a pastor. I know you, because he's looking at me. I know you. But I want to know, Nathan, what's the one thing that you think is going to be an issue in your marriage?
Did he say obeying?
He said my friendships. And boundaries, and which was interesting because
by the way, shut it, because Nathan doesn't have friends.
Shut it down.
It's not that he has bad friends; it's that he has no friends.
He had Adam,
and my issue was that I felt like he was trying to take me away from my friendships. So it was the same issue, but it allowed us to have this really deep conversation about where he's coming from and him wanting to protect our marriage. A lot of my friends at the time that
these
we
are
were
not
getting
godly
married,
friendships.
no, they're not godly. And
Let's clarify.
And a
These aren't like
handful
no
of them.
friends
Came
at
out of the
church.
womb
These
saved.
are
Well, and also keep in mind, my friend group, half of the friend group were going through divorces.
yes. It
at
was not
that
a good
time.
influence.
It's not a good look, Nathan.
These
So-
are
Not as a pastor.
Not a good look.
no.
Not a
He
good
said, and he said, listen, you can absolutely have relationships with these women. You can go one-on-one, which every single one of them. But I do not want you to go in a group setting with these women. I just don't think that. I was just having this conversation yesterday. What he taught me in that, through that premarital counseling, going into getting married, the thing that I had learned, and it's the basis for every decision we make, is does this relationship benefit our marriage? If it doesn't benefit our marriage, then I'm not going to prioritize it by any means. And it's hard because sometimes you have to be the bad guy and you have to, those people didn't do anything wrong. So then why are you pulling away? And it's just because it's not going to benefit my marriage. We talk about that in ministry all the time with relationships or decisions that we
Right.
make. Is this going to benefit Abundant Living Family Church? Is it going to benefit our position here or our church family? And if the answer is no, then we have to just make those boundaries. And so having that conversation before we got married about these boundaries, I laughed it off a little bit because I just probably like that lady in the clip, because one of the first things he bought me when we got engaged was the Boundaries book. Boundaries in marriage or boundaries in something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably bought all of them.
By like,
All of them.
what's his name?
Henry
Dave
Cloud.
Henry Cloud.
Cloud. Yep.
Dave.
Clearly he knew.
Dave Patterson. That's probably what you're gonna say.
But I didn't realize that I had such an issue with boundaries. And so, and that was my issue, was that I thought I was going to be able to be everywhere all at once. And his thing was, no, now that we're going to be married, you need to focus on your marriage. I thought that was controlling, but it wasn't controlling. It was,
So back then, you would have been in the comments with all those other
I-
people. and
I-
they're like, yes, girl, snap, snap.
1,000%.
Right?
but I have a man
Yeah.
who I trust
Yeah.
and I obey
Yeah.
because he
Sanaz
makes
has
it
grown
easy.
so much.
I have. God,
Nathan has
Amen.
grown a ton.
you're welcome for
Praise
that.
the Lord.
You're
Yes,
welcome.
Sanaz has really helped
I really,
Nathan
I just.
come out of his shell in a lot of areas, in that way. So yeah, but to answer your question, then Jermaine, within a year, I meet Ashlee a year later, so after they meet, so and then they get married within that year. So I meet Ashlee, then we start a lot of group stuff. So that's really how things started getting closer, because then a lot of group hangouts and gatherings and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
brought us all really closer. And then everyone knows the rest of the story, that when me and Ashlee get married, that became more pivotal
Intentional,
and
yeah.
important in
Yeah.
intention, because historically Sanaz was closer with Caleb's wife early on in those years, which now Sanaz is closer with Ashlee, so my Ashlee. So that kind of what changed. Once we got married, and me and Ashlee really needed a healthy couple, because we realized we had never really seen one under the hood before. We didn't know what we were doing, and as far as we could tell, Sanaz and Nathan were a really healthy couple. And they were, but even on the outside, it looked like it. And then we pulled the hood. It was like, oh no, they really are a healthy couple. And that's how we end up getting really close within community and accountability and all that kind of stuff.
And
like
even
that.
though you guys are brothers, that the relationship of the four of us happened very organically.
Yeah.
There was no like, okay, guys, we're gonna be accountability now, and we're gonna, force ourselves into your marriage now, and all that stuff. It was just very, very organic. And then all of a sudden, you realize that, I'm not going to be able to do marriage without
We may
them.
have forced ourselves on you guys because we loved couch time. But I mean,
We have a very comfortable couch.
they have the most comfortable couch in the world. But I always remember when we first started, when we first got married, we were over there a lot. But it was just healthy to see a good, healthy marriage and to be around that, like you were saying. Sorry, I cut you off.
No.
Sorry.
No.
Yeah. Like,
what we
you don't
do.
have to it's a
know
podcast,
that.
Ashley.
Okay,
It's all good.
Sorry.
But it was good though, because we needed it as well, because everybody knows Nathan is very guarded when it comes to allowing people into his life. I'm the opposite. I'm like, come, let's, do life together. And
Yeah.
that's why he bought me the Boundaries
Yeah.
book, because I needed it. So when I moved out here and I didn't know anybody and I married Nathan, and then he told me I couldn't have my friends anymore, I was totally by myself. And so when Ashlee came in, and then Caleb's wife, and that's just sort of all I had. And so as I started developing my own friendships in the church, I realized there were very few people who could really truly get like full access to me, and it just so organically happened with Adam and Ashlee.
Yeah.
So when they talk about like accountability, it was never one of those things where we're just like, okay, like we work at the church, so like I guess it's gonna be you guys. Like it just that level of trust just happened. We went through a lot and saw a lot and saw the character of everybody, and you always want to have people around you in your marriage who, if you want your marriage to look like theirs, they want their marriage to resemble yours, and the mutual respect for one another is there.
Yeah, I would say the one thing, and this is kind of going left, so I'll let you know I'm going left.
Okay.
What you guys are talking about is like with the friendship side of things and having the boundaries. I would say, like, obviously being in ministry when we first started off, that was kind of like the hardest thing. Obviously we had you guys, but the hardest thing I would say in ministry, having the friendship, is being honest on the front end, especially if you're going into married couples and you're meeting the wife who has a husband, of allowing and setting those boundaries. Because I know Adam and I had those conversations early on, and where I'm going is I'm friends with the wife. And when the wife obviously kind of knows our position, leadership, and stuff like that, they kind of want to bleed them together. Like, oh, well, let's have your husband meet. And so Adam and I had to talk through those boundaries of, she's your friend, and I'm okay with her being your friend.
Right.
Not to say that I wouldn't want to meet her husband or anything like that.
Right.
But this is your friend. So those are things, I don't know if you've felt the same way too, because obviously you're saying going into ministry and you're pulled from friends and trying to find these boundaries and what does it look like, and Nathan being more reserved, you being more open, and sometimes that could be as well. But when Adam has his friends, Adam is solid in his friends. And not to say no one else is welcomed or anything like that, but he knows I'm gonna make friends with everybody. But it's now finding those boundaries and that standpoint of like, how do we make it so that we're not so negative towards the relationship aspect with the husband and the wife, because I'm friends with the wife. And it's like, I don't know if you've ever ran into those predicaments where you're like, I'm friends with the wife, and she's like, let's double date. And you're like, well, I like you. Let's just, can we just hang out, sort of thing. And it's not to say that the husband would be
and
terrible.
I think it also comes, it's like,
hard.
no, I think most of the time for you, it's been like, I don't know that your husband will like Adam. Like you may like it in theory, but like Nathan knows this, and Jermaine, like I have a very big personality. I'm a quiet guy, tend to be, but those that I'm closest to, I have very big personality. I'm very high on convictions. I'm very, very like, hey, we're doing this. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm very, like in our relationship, I'm the initiator on everything in my friendships and stuff like that. And so I'm a lot to take in if you become my close friend. And I've seen over the years, people don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Like they don't know how to separate that. And just like, man, I didn't know by being your friend, like you were going to hold me accountable on my wife, like
I could just,
it just, or, it just, there would be levels where they have a picture of what being a friend looks like with me potentially. And then it becomes that. And then they would be like, man, I don't know that I signed up for this. And so I've always been very cautious, like, because girlfriends can they go get coffee and then it's cool and they text back and forth. Guys, it's like we're not gonna unless we get really, really close, we're not gonna text back and forth and blah 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 blah.
Right.
It's like we're gonna meet up for dinner or golf or whatever, and then it potentially could go deep really fast with guys, you know, depending on how that person operates the relationship. So I've always just known let that relationship be your relationship, because I don't want them to not like you because of me.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Well, because I
I'm going to go
imagine-
in very heavy, you know.
I imagine you're not gonna, you don't want to waste your time without being intentional. So you're like, okay, if I'm gonna hang out with these people, I want to get to know them. I want to,
Right.
and then with that comes, conviction.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people, they're like, oh, you know, this isn't as easy of a friendship as possible, because like I have to be on
you
my
have to-
best. I have to
Yeah,
be at my best
Yeah.
when I'm with this person, because they're challenging me to be even better. And so, which is wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
Some people just are not ready for
Yeah.
that.
Well, I
Yeah.
remember one time a guy told me, you know, you haven't checked on me in 2 months. And I was like, okay, man, sorry, I've been busy, and you know, like there's a lot going on, and you haven't checked on me in 2 months. And his response was, you're a pastor, you should know better. I'm not a pastor, so I shouldn't have to check on you. But I says, okay, so we weren't just friends. I had to bring my occupation into our friendship at the same time. And so apparently you had expectations of this friendship that I was supposed to pastor you at the same time of being your friend. But yet, so I'm like, all of a sudden I realized, wow, you had all these expectations of being a friend with me that I had nothing, no expectations of being a friend with you. And then the more that I had friends, the more I realized, unless it was organic, people had expectations of what a friendship would look like.
Right.
And then I would fail them almost every time of what that would look like, you know? And so then I stopped saying like, well, I'd rather it be organic. Like I'd rather just, and even for Ashlee, like if you're meeting friends with a girl, like if we're having a birthday party for Matthias and they come and they bring her comes and now I'm talking to the husband, if it develops organically, cool.
Right.
I mean, I'll even do a double date. That's fine. But if all of a sudden it's like, let's exchange numbers, let's do this next day, and I can see they have something in their head that they're tallying into what this relationship is going to look like, then that's immediately when I start to pull back, because those that are friends with me know that it's a lot, you know, like it's a lot. Jermaine knows that. Nathan knows that. There's only two right now or Gabe knows that as well. Gabe's in here as well. Like they know what that entails. That entails we're going to hold each other accountable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Means we're going to be in community.
Yeah.
Means we're going to be high on conviction. We're going to be high on standards. And then guys go like, well, I'm not, you know. The best way I put it is like there's that movie Fireproof where I think it's Fireproof, where they make the little vows on paper as husbands. Like I do that unintentionally. Like I've been doing that since before that movie came out, but I don't like create a list and make us all vow it. But there is a level of vow that I commit to my friendships that I hope they commit the same.
Right.
Yeah.
And not every guy wants to live to that commitment in that regard, which is fine.
Yeah.
I don't want it. I don't want them to feel that way.
Yeah.
But that's just who I am. Like, and I'm you know, it's not that that's who I am. I won't change, but it's like that's my personality. Like I'm
No, I
you
mean
know,
it's
like
it's
I
the
give
same.
a lot.
Like
you know,
before I became a Christian, honestly. I was a therapist, so my friends would come to me and they'd be talking about whatever issue, and I would ask them like, "So do you want do you want me as a friend? Do you want me as an ear? Do you want advice, or do you want therapy?
Yeah.
Like which one do you want?"
Yeah.
But as a pastor, you know, it's completely different, because you can't turn one off or the other.
Right.
Like conviction is conviction, and if you're doing something wrong, you're not just going to listen and be like, "I hear you. That's yeah.
yeah.
You cheated on your wife. Okay." You know,
Yeah.
you're not going to do
Right,
that.
right.
Like you have to have to always be a pastor.
100%.
So at those times it's like, okay, it begins to feel like you're constantly pouring from
Right.
your cup and nobody's there to help fill it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give another clear example of like what that looks like is many years ago there was, you know, friends, and we had something coming up. It was like a dinner and stuff like that, and I just so happened to hear from someone else that this person, the person that's my friend, borrowed money from someone and hadn't, and I'm talking about in the thousands, hadn't paid them back. They were supposed to pay them within 90 days, hadn't paid them back in a year money, a significant amount of money. This person I was hanging out with. So when I heard it, I sat with him and was like, hey, like you can live whatever standard you want, but next Saturday, we all have a dinner and we're all hanging out. If you don't pay him back by next Saturday, don't show up to the dinner. And he was like, what? And I was like, oh yeah, I cannot be friends with someone that takes advantage of people's money. You borrowed, you made up. Is this true? Is this story true? First, I validated, is this true? And they were like, yeah, it's true. And then, and I'm sorry, I got stuff going on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, but that person doesn't feel like it. And I just saw you buy a new pair of Yeezys. So whatever you're saying is not matching up with your ethics and your spending. Yep. So therefore, as a friend, and now other friends, other people in other friends groups, they'd be like, bro, that's your personal, that's you, you do whatever. Let's just have fun next Saturday. Yeah. Let's go out to dinner and let's have a good time with our spouses, our wives. Me, I don't operate that way because I hope I would be held in a close friendship to that same regard of accountability. And so I've expected that, and I've had that over the years, and I see how healthy my relationships are and my life is. Right. I see how much peace I have. Yeah. Go back to what Sanaz was saying, is like that peace thing is big for me. Me having peace is big. Huge. And so even that other person being able to look at me and being like, they think I know. So they'll be like, how can Adam be friends with that person when that person has so much debts? And I'm like, I don't even know. Right. I don't even know this person. But now all of a sudden I'm like, looked at as, oh, well, maybe that's the way you are, Adam.
You're
or maybe that's the way, or you're okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to have that talk with that individual, and they were very unhappy that I told them, hey, dinner's off and all that stuff like that. And then, but turns out within 90 days, that person paid off that person, and we had to work through that relationship moving forward. And we've reconciled over the years now, and we have, when we see each other, there's nothing but love, but it did impede our friendship. And that to me is just an example of the quality of standard of life that I hope people hold me accountable to, that I hold accountable to. And I think men do that. Like I've never understood, and I have family members like this and stuff. Like I've never understood guys who go out on a weekend trip with their friends, and then half the friends take a girl home, hook up with her, are married and cheat on their wife, go to a strip club or whatever. And then the husband just laughs and rolls his eyes and goes, oh yeah, you know how John is to the wife. But it's like, that's your friend.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, you're the greatest sum of who you hang out with.
Absolutely.
Like, that is your friend.
Right.
Absolutely.
And if you put up with that standard, John can do whatever he wants, but guess what? You're packing that bag and you need to drive home. Like, you get your butt home. You're not hanging out and laughing at John bringing a girl home, or bringing, or cheating on his wife. Bro, well, it's not my business. No, I've all of my friends know that do life with me. If you ever see me hit on a waitress, you call my wife right away. You tell her. You tell her. You ain't no secret. I don't need you to keep no secret from me. Yeah, bro. Well, it's not my marriage. No. Yeah. If you see me at the restaurant hitting on a waitress, what's your Instagram, whatever, any man who hangs around me, you have every right. You get on your phone and you snitch on my butt.
Right.
That's it. Right. And then other guys have been like, well, man, I don't want that standard. Yeah. It's like, well, God bless you.
Right.
When we see each other, it's all love.
Right. Yeah.
I'm always here for you.
Yeah.
Like, give me a call if you ever need me.
Yeah.
But that next, and Pastor Diego has, our dad has always said it great. He's talked about the pyramid of relationships over the years, but like,
for sure,
that top part of that pyramid, that is reserved in terms of friendship in men, and it's even become for Ashlee and friendships with women. Like, that top part of that pyramid is reserved for only the people who, not people who pursue that are perfect, but people who are willing to be perfected by Christ, like, and who are looking for that grace and accountability and honesty. And so that top of that pyramid is reserved to those individuals. And there are people in our lives who we've had to put down lower on that pyramid because they've said at first, it grew organically. They said at first, man, I love that, Adam. I think that's great. Blah, 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 blah. And then the first time it goes south, you're just like, well, it's not. It really wasn't. It was important to you in theory, but it's not important to you in practice.
Yeah.
So for Ashlee, I just want to bring that concept, because when Ashlee is saying, like, if someone says, "Oh yeah, I want to be friends with your husband," she's almost saying, like, I don't think you do.
No.
Yeah. Right. Right.
I don't think you want you want that friendship.
You ready to be wrecked?
Unless it builds really, really organically, then it's great.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys I've discipled, and I've been discipled over the years and grown a lot. And so I think that's what I'm desiring is I want to be better. I want to get better, and I want to do better. Yeah. And if I allow in a close proximity people who aren't then it'll rub off on me.
Yeah.
You know, like if you got friends that next to you, they're like, bro,
Yeah.
look at this girl on Instagram. She, you know, like eventually when he's not around, you're gonna pull that girl back up from
Yeah.
Instagram
Yeah.
like that.
Yep.
You let that it rubs
Yeah.
off. You know, like so I'd rather just like I'm not gonna have someone around me that does that.
Yeah.
Or we're gonna at least make a pursuit that we're gonna try our best to be the best versions
sure.
of fathers, husbands, everything like that.
Absolutely.
Anyone got anything else?
stuff.
We land the plane.
Can we have him back so we can talk more about dating next time?
You want? Well, believe it or not, I don't think. Can we hear you? Did you unmute yourself? Oh, there
sorry,
you go. Your
I-
mic.
I
Can you
moved
say
my
it
mic 'cause I
again?
was drinking
I heard
water.
it because I'm in the
Stay
room.
hydrated.
But what did you say?
I
It shouldn't
said-
be repeated.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my gosh! I said if we can have him back for
Nathan
you know,
and Sanaz.
yeah, and Ashlee.
Well,
She
we're
said for dating advice.
we're
particularly.
launching Beyond I Do. So
yeah, okay.
Beyond I Do will be 52 weeks a year of stuff kind of like this.
Just-
You know, just stuff like this.
52 weeks
You
a
know.
year, Ashlee.
But yes, but there are so many, and we finally found that niche is like there are so many friends that we have of marriages we really look up to, we really respect, that are so different from each other. You know,
Okay.
you have like Aaron and Erica who have
Yeah.
a blended family experience and stuff like that, and then I have George Gregory and his wife he's the Chargers chaplain, incredible marriage and stuff like that. And so there's individuals we want to have on there talk about that, and then I know a lot of people in the same regards who dated really well at the same time, and others who didn't date well at the same time. So it's everything into relationships will be Beyond I Do. So that dating, that relationship, marriage, and we'll really niche into this type of conversation that we have. And then Beyond the Letter will stay because we still need Caleb's crazy antics.
Yeah.
We still need.
We miss you.
We
guys.
missed you.
Yeah, we missed
Oil.
Caleb today. And so
I almost brought a tin hat just to,
I know.
Right?
So Caleb will be back next week with me, and then we will share the launch date really soon for Beyond I Do. We're shooting for top of September, but we'll see if it doesn't happen until end of September, because people don't realize we got a lot of systems involved. Because you got to get the, I know we have the accounts and stuff, but you got Instagram and the TikTok account and everything else. And so, we could hit some of that dating stuff. I know we hit it last week. We did kind of a 2-week Beyond I Do kind of feel with last week's you and Chelsea singleness,
Yeah.
which was fun.
Just love saying
And then,
that.
hey, be proud of it.
No,
Because as you can hear
I
from the
love that.
conversation today, when you're out of that season of singleness, it ramps up.
It does.
Oh no,
Yes.
yeah, I'm
It's the
enjoying the
homework.
singleness right now.
Yeah.
Ashley and I had a conversation
Yes.
about that. It's like you have so much freedom. Like I can literally buy a plane ticket and just go wherever I want.
Sure
Where-
can.
it's different. So I'm literally
Yeah.
just enjoying it right now, and the time will come, and
Yes.
we'll
Yes.
Yes,
And that
girl.
season will be gone,
Right.
definitely. So,
Definitely.
Hey,
Yeah.
well, hopefully you
No,
would.
that's the goal.
Hopefully, if you get married, you won't be
Yeah.
single again.
Right,
That's-
Right.
That is the goal.
That is
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. But then becomes more financial burdens, more relationship burdens, and all that kind of stuff like that.
Sounds great.
Which that was the best thing.
I was like, wait.
But
What would I
just
say?
different challenges.
Not in a
Yeah, different,
But
yeah.
they are burdens. The
Yeah.
financial burdens of having a marriage and having children and
Right.
those are burdens.
I always
they're
say,
blessings, but they're
being
burdens.
married
like,
is harder, but being married is better.
Yeah.
Just like having
like that.
children is harder, but having
that
children
quote.
is better.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
I mean, I always say like when we finally had Matthias, I was just like, if I knew how much I was gonna love this, I would have done this at 18. But it wouldn't have been good at
Really?
18
No,
for me. But you think about it,
Yeah.
I would have ruined it. But I say that in the sense of like, if I knew how much fulfilling this was,
Yeah.
man, I wish I did it sooner. But I wasn't ready sooner, so I'm glad I did it now.
Yeah.
But it's that idea of like, if you taste, if you go to a restaurant for the first time or something that you've passed your whole life, you're like, man, I should have ate this a long time ago.
time
But I'm
ago.
glad I did it right now, and,
Right,
and
right.
blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
that to me was what fatherhood was. So like, it's a sweet season. When I meet people who don't like that this season, I'm just, it's hard. I mean, it's hard as heck. I'm tired all
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
But man, I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Day,
good times.
Yeah.
I have one
Very
word for you
rewarding.
guys.
A word
Riveting.
of knowledge,
Riveting.
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 Word of
Absolutely
Oh,
Good.
riveting
I'm glad
today.
because there's two words
Amen.
that I've taken from this: wild and riveting. So it's either one or the other.
Amen. All right, everybody.
Thank
God bless you. Man, we made 2
Ciao.
hours again. 45 minutes ago, I was trying to land the plane.
Sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.